It's the Lou, Desmond and Company Show.
Normally on Thursday nights going forward, we will have our constitutional scholar team, Ralph Rossum. Of course, everybody knows Ralph who listens to the show. He's been doing the show with me for on almost 20 years now. He's been the legal scholar of record. And we've added Mike O'Neill from the Landmark Legal Foundation out of Washington, D.C., who also joins us. It would have been a great day to have him, actually, because of all the stuff that's going on at the Supreme Court and the case for Trump in New York and all that. But they'll be back next week, and we have a very special guest tonight. You know how much I love law enforcement. I teach law enforcement classes, public information classes in about 5 different states. I have always been a big supporter of law enforcement. One of my largest clients, Maglite, is a huge supporter of law enforcement. And I personally donate 10% of all my classes to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund. I do volunteer work for the National Police Dog Foundation. I'm going to be at the Canine Memorial for the first time at Police Week in Washington, D.C. coming up on May 11th. And oh, by the way, you're going to see some national coverage of that event thanks to this guy right here who's got friends at Fox News. So just saying, watch Fox News on May 11th and on Sunday, May 12th, and you'll see some great coverage of the National Police Dog Foundation's National Canine Memorial Service. 26 canines killed so far this year in the line of duty. I mean, killed in the last year. So they go May 1 to May 1. And so in the last year, 26 canines were killed. The vast majority gunshot and being run over by vehicles. But a number of them also died from work-related injuries, and then heat stroke killed about 6 different dogs, which is really unfortunate. And I'm actually working with the company to develop a product for canines that would hook to their handler's cell phone and give them a read of the dog's core temperature, their heartbeat, and all their other vitals, so they could tell if a dog is in distress before it basically just drops dead. Because these working dogs will literally work themselves to death. That's how seriously they take their jobs. The man who takes his job very seriously joins us now. It is Sergeant John Plummer, second time on the show. He's the president of the SBPOA. This is the San Bernardino Police Officers Association. Now, let me make clear, there is a huge difference between the San Bernardino Police Department, which is the city department and its communications, and then the SBPOA, which represents the rank and file union members in the police department. One is a public entity, one is a private entity, and a union entity supported by the dues of the rank and file officers. That is who Sergeant John Plummer represents, and we welcome to the show now, Sergeant Plummer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lou, for having me. And again, thank you for making that distinction between the two entities, because a lot of people forget that or they do not know that. So I'm grateful for you to give out that introduction.
Yeah, no, it's important. It's important to make that distinction because, you know, in my law enforcement classes, my public information officer classes that I do around the Western United States, I talk about social media. I do about an hour and a half, a 90-minute thing on social media as part of the class. And one of the things I'm a little uncomfortable with police departments doing is what they call humanization of the police officers. This is where you get dancing cop videos. This is where you get singing police officer videos. This is where you get Happy Donut Day. I am uncomfortable with that communication coming from a police department, because I think the communications of a police department ought to be mission focused. And that means focused on what the police department's job is, and that's making the community safe. I think the unions, frankly, ought to be doing the other stuff. Your thoughts on that?
No, So I guess I definitely agree, but I also know that I guess my role as a president, one thing that I would like to see, and I think we're doing it, and a lot of different agencies are doing it, is showing the human side of police work as well.
No, and that's exactly what I'm saying, that you as the union, you represent the officers.
Yeah,
So I think that makes perfect sense
but
for the union to do.
I also like when I see an officer in uniform that's interacting with individuals from the community because
Yep.
it allows them to humanize the badge. Because me as a president, you really won't see me often in my uniform. I'm more in a suit or a tie. So that does humanize me, but I want them to see the officer in the uniform in the patrol car where they can see that nice side of them as well.
So just tell people in your own words, what is the SBPOA, San Bernardino Police Officers Association, and what's your mission?
So our mission is always to maintain fair working conditions and giving a safe place for our members to work in and providing the utmost transparency with them on what's going on to the day-to-day operations of the city, along with it within the community. Now, with that being said, we have almost nearly 300 members that I serve and all my board members serve. And overall, it's not just our members. That's our primary goal, but it's also bridging the gap with the community. Just like you said, I want the community to know the other side of my officers that go day in and day out to keep this city safe. And so our mission is not only to preserve and keep our members safe, but also the community as well.
Through my work with the the National Police Dog Foundation, I always want to call it the National Canine Foundation because that's who they represent, but it's actually called the National Police Dog Foundation. I found out something very interesting that I was shocked by, frankly. Most departments, their canines are paid for by private donations. The canine programs. That shocked me. But that's true?
Yeah, we also have some private donations. I mean, we have other money that we have that's utilized for it through our police foundation, but a lot of money is private funded, and you have a lot of good citizens that actually love law enforcement and want us to have the resources that we need. So we're very grateful for them. But you're absolutely right. Yes, there definitely are some private donations that come out to help us with those resources.
Up in the Pacific Northwest, where I spend a lot of time now, there's in Oregon and Washington, unlike California, there's a lot of very rural, small police departments, 8, 9 officers, 6 officers, covering hundreds of miles. Those departments don't have the money to pay for canines, and so their canine programs are completely supported by private donations. Now you have not canine, you have canine units, obviously, but you also have mounted police on horseback, and that is all paid for by private charity through your organization, correct?
Yeah, it is, but by us working with the city, so I do have to give the city kudos as well. We have a stipend that also helps our mounted officers help support their horses where they can pay for food and different equipment and things. But yes, they also get assistance from private donors, but they also get certain compensation from the city to help care for those horses as well.
Trying to make is, if it wasn't for your union's efforts, would there still be mounted officers? Or would that program face a real threat of just not being able to be paid for?
I wouldn't say it would be a threat because there's obviously a public safety need.
Right.
I think by having the union or the association, I think it's been able to help advocate and speak for them a little more to get them more resources. But
Right.
I think there's always in our city, there's always going to be a need for the mounted unit for sure.
Well, because you have mountainous places where ATVs even can't go, correct?
Correct.
So you need them.
Yes.
We've seen protests erupt on campuses around the country.
Yes.
I'm not getting into the politics of it, but having a mounted unit helps enormously with crowd control, right?
100%. It definitely helps, but it also helps for officer safety, for citizen safety. There's so many key mechanisms by having those mounted units in force.
The, the the most recent thing I can reference is I saw University of Texas, Austin. It's one thing when there's a skirmish line of officers on foot, but when the skirmish line of horses starts to move forward, the crowd starts to move back, right?
I think that's a oh my God, I need to get out of the way type of message. So yeah, I think people get that loud and clear.
So why is it important for police departments to have police unions, in your words?
I would say the number one word that's thrown out in every single thing in life now is accountability. Accountability for our officers, accountability for our city public officials, accountability for our department, and accountability for our citizens so they have the transparency. So believe it or not, wrongdoing goes on, not even just in police work, but in other corporations. And so you need someone to have a check
Wait,
and
stop.
balance.
You mean not everybody is honest?
Hey, I would hope so, but unfortunately,
Right.
no. Unfortunately, no. And that is why we need police associations and police unions to be there for a check to balance. And I'm going to tell you, sitting as a president for several years, being a vice president for several years, being a representative for every single rank within this department, I've had my share of looking at a lot of different cases, but I will tell you, 9 times out of 10, it's been a misunderstanding. It wasn't real wrongdoing. It was more people just felt like they were being mistreated. And when you look into the whole overall scheme, it was just a misunderstanding. But it's good to have
Drives
that
me
transparency.
crazy. What drives me absolutely nuts is when a media fake story has been proven to be fake, yet they still keep telling the fake story. And I'll give you one of my favorite examples. There was a gentleman who had a restraining order against him. He showed up at his girlfriend's ex-wife's house, whatever it was. This is, I think, in Minnesota.
Okay.
And it became national news. And he grabbed up the two kids. He had put them in his SUV and he was moving toward the vehicle to drive away. And in his hand was a knife. The police officer saw the knife, told him to drop it. They couldn't allow him to get in the vehicle with the two kids in it with the knife in his hand. He was a threat. He was there violating a restraining order, and he was shot several times. And you know what? He was shot in the back. Well, that's because he turned his back to get in the vehicle to the officer that was telling him to stop. And the media portrays it as African American shot in the back by white police officers in Minnesota. And there's no context. There's no there to the story. And then they denied he had a weapon in his hand initially. And when the body cam and other video came out and clearly showed he had a knife in his hand, they still continued to deny it. That kind of stuff has got to make you crazy as the head of an organization that advocates for police officers, doesn't it?
Well, absolutely. So to answer that, absolutely. But I think the biggest thing is, and I look at it like this: the media controls the masses, so they have the opportunity to make an innocent person guilty and a guilty person innocent. And all I ask for my members and any person in law enforcement is for them to be given a fair trial, giving them a fair shot. We want transparency for the community. I want the community to know what happens. But I want you to understand that being in law enforcement for almost 2 decades, I can also say that human performance is always taken into account. So you have to understand that you got to look at it from so many different layers. And we should always look at it by having all of the facts instead of jumping to conclusions or having haphazard decisions made when we don't have all the facts. Because I'm going to tell you right now, no one wants a bad police officer on the force more than police officers are doing their job right.